Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into the latest version of Tailwind CSS version 4. This release is a major update packed with exciting new features and improvements that take your development experience to the next level. If you have not already, make sure to check out our previous video where we explore all the new features and updates in version 4. We break everything down in detail, so it's a must-watch if you want to stay on top of your game. I'll leave a link in the description down below. In that video we also showed how to install and set up Tailwind CSS version 4 in a React project using Vite. And in this video I'll demonstrate different ways to install and set up Tailwind CSS version 4, so no matter what type of project you're working on, you will have the tools and knowledge to get started quickly. Also, if you're currently using Tailwind CSS version 3, don't worry, I'll walk you through the steps to upgrade your project from version 3 to version 4 quickly and easily. Now, if you're new here, I'm George and I run this channel together with my friend Lasha. We create high-quality web development tutorials that are as good as premium courses, but completely free. If you enjoy learning from this kind of detailed and practical content, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss any of our future tutorials. Your support means a lot, and we're just 150 subscribers away from reaching 20,000 subscribers. So let's hit that milestone together. Now that we are ready to dive into Tailwind CSS 4, let's head over to the official Tailwind CSS website. In the documentation section, you will find an entire area dedicated to installation, where they provide several options for setting up Tailwind CSS in your projects, from using Vite and Post CSS to Tailwind CLI and framework guides, and even the Play CDN. These methods cover a wide range of use cases, ensuring you can choose the approach that best fits your workflow. Since we've already installed and configured Tailwind CSS 4 with React and Vite in the previous video, today we will focus on two other ways to get Tailwind up and running. First, we will explore how to use the Play CDN to quickly experiment with Tailwind CSS without any setup. Then we will dive into the Tailwind CLI method, where I'll walk you through how to install and configure Tailwind CSS locally for a more robust and scalable project setup. So let's start with the Play CDN to see how it allows you to play around with Tailwind CSS in no time. To demonstrate how to use Tailwind CSS with the CDN link, let's start by creating a new project folder. I've already created an empty folder on my desktop and I'll open it in VS Code to keep things clean and organized. Once inside, I'll create a new file and name it index.html. This will be our main HTML file. Now to set up a basic HTML structure, I'll use Emmet, which is a great built-in tool in VS Code. Simply type an exclamation mark and hit enter, and Emmet will generate a boilerplate HTML document for us. Next, we need to bring in the Tailwind CSS CDN link. In order to do that, I'll head over to the official Tailwind CSS website. Here you will find a section for Play CDN with the ready-to-use CDN link. I'll copy this link and paste it inside the head section of our HTML document. This link loads Tailwind CSS directly into our project, allowing us to use all the utility classes without any additional setup. Now, let's test if everything is working as expected. Inside the body tag, I'll add an h1 heading element with the text, "This is Tailwind CSS version 4. To style it with Tailwind classes, I'll apply the following utility classes. Let's add BG purple 600, then text 9XL, also add here text white, and padding 20. To view this in the browser, I highly recommend using the Live Server extension in VS Code. If you don't already have it installed, it's free and incredibly useful. Just search for Live Server in the extensions manager, install it. Then you need to right-click on your HTML file to open it with Live Server. So this will spin up a local development server and automatically open the file in your default browser. Once the page loads, you will see a large heading with a purple background on the page. So this confirms that Tailwind CSS is successfully working via the CDN link. However, while using the CDN is quick and convenient, it's important to note that it's primarily recommended for beginners or for prototyping small projects. It is a fantastic way to play around with Tailwind and experiment with its classes without committing to a full setup. For real-world projects, especially those intended for production, relying on the CDN is not ideal. The CDN serves all of Tailwind's utility classes, even the ones you might not use, which can increase load times and impact performance. For professional-grade projects, you need a more robust and optimized setup. And that's exactly what we're going to explore next, using Tailwind CLI to install and configure Tailwind CSS for a real project. So let's dive into that now. To start, using Tailwind CSS with the CLI, we first need Node.js. If you don't already have Node.js installed, head over to nodejs.org and download the latest version. Node.js is essential because it gives us access to npm Node Package Manager, which is what we will use to install and manage our project dependencies, including Tailwind CSS. Next, I'll open an empty folder in VS Code. Once it's open in VS Code, we need to open the terminal. You can do this by pressing Ctrl plus backtick on your keyboard or by going to the view and selecting terminal. Both methods will open the terminal right inside VS Code, so you can manage everything from one place. The first step in initializing our project is running the command npm init. This command initializes a new npm project in our folder, creating a package.json file. The package.json file is like the brain of our project. It keeps track of all the packages, dependencies we install, as well as metadata like the project name, version, and other. Once you run the command, you will be prompted to enter some details about the project. You can just press enter a few times and accept the default values. After running npm init, you will notice a package.json file has been created in your folder. This file will store all the information about the dependencies we install and any scripts we use for our project. It's an essential file for managing and organizing everything. Now, let's install Tailwind CSS. Head over to the Tailwind CSS website and go to the Tailwind CLI section under the Installation tab. Here you will find the command to install Tailwind CSS. I'm going to copy and run this in our terminal. So this command does two important things. It installs the Tailwind CSS core library so we can use all its utility classes, and also it installs the Tailwind CLI tool, which helps us build and optimize our CSS files. Once the installation is complete, you will notice a new Node modules folder in your project directory. This folder stores all the dependencies installed by npm, including Tailwind CSS. Additionally, the package.json file has been updated to include Tailwind CSS and its CLI as dependencies. This ensures anyone working on the project can install the same dependencies by running npm install. Next, we need to import Tailwind CSS into our project. The Tailwind CSS website recommends creating a file named input.css in the src folder, where we will include Tailwind's base, components, and utilities using the import directive. So let's go ahead and create src folder in our project, and then add input.css file inside the src folder. I'm going to add the following line. We need add import Tailwind CSS. So this imports all of Tailwind styles into our project, giving us access to its utility classes. The input.css file serves as the starting point for our Tailwind styles. Now it's time to test Tailwind CSS in action. Inside the src folder, I'm going to create an index.html file with a basic HTML structure. Then in the body, I'm going to add an h1 heading element with some classes, let's say bg yellow 300, then text 9xl, and padding 20. As for the content, let's insert here. This is Tailwind CSS version 4. So before we run this in the browser, we need to link our CSS file. Let's go back to the Tailwind website and copy the following line. Paste this inside the head element of your index.html file. So here you can see output.css file. Actually, it's going to be generated by the Tailwind CLI containing all the process styles from our input.css. As you can see, we have not generated this file yet, so let's do that next. To start the Tailwind CLI build process, go back to the website and copy this command. So here is what this command does. npx Tailwind CSS CLI runs the Tailwind CLI without requiring a global installation. -i src input.css specifies the input file where we have imported Tailwind's styles. Then we have -o followed by output.css. It defines the output file where Tailwind will generate the processed CSS. And finally we have -watch. It ensures the CLI watches for changes in input.css and regenerates output.css automatically. Run this command in your terminal and you will see that an output.css file is generated in the src folder. Every time you make changes to your Tailwind classes or input.css, this file will update automatically. It's an efficient way to keep your styles up to date without manual intervention. To streamline this process further, we can add this command to the package.json file under the script section. This way we don't need to type the entire command every time. Instead, we can just run npm run dev. Here is how the script section of package.json would look. We have to add here dev, and then as the value we have to insert the command. Okay, now let's go ahead and test this setup. I'm going to delete the output.css file and then run npm run dev. The output.css file will be regenerated instantly. And to confirm everything is working, let's go to your index.html file and add some Tailwind classes to the h1 heading element. Let's say font bold and italic. Then go to the browser. So you'll see the heading updated with bold and italic styles. Alright, finally, let's discuss a scenario where you need to move the index.html file to another folder. I'm going to create a new folder. Let's call it project. Then move index.html there. So we need to update a few things. First, we need to update the path of output.css file in the package.json file. So we need here project. Actually, we can rename this file. It's not mandatory to call this file output.css every time. We can add here style.css. Also, update the link tag in the index.html file. Then we can delete output.css file at all. And finally, let's run npm run dev. So as you can see, a new file style.css is generated in the project folder. And if we check the browser, you will see that everything works perfectly. So to recap, the Tailwind CLI allows you to generate optimized CSS files, making it ideal for projects of any size. With automatic builds and configuration via package.json, the workflow becomes smooth and efficient. Whether you're prototyping or working on production-ready projects, this setup ensures you're leveraging Tailwind CSS to its full potential. Now, before we continue, let me introduce you to an amazing extension that every Tailwind CSS developer should know about, Tailwind CSS IntelliSense. If you don't have it installed yet, open the Extensions Manager in VS Code and search for Tailwind CSS IntelliSense. This extension is super important for working with Tailwind. It provides autocomplete for utility classes, tooltips with class details. It makes your development process smoother, faster, and much more efficient, especially if you're working on large projects. But now, let's talk about something important. With the release of Tailwind CSS version 4, there's been some confusion in the community about the lack of a Tailwind config file. In the previous versions of Tailwind, the configuration file was automatically generated during the installation process. This file allowed you to customize your Tailwind setup, like adding custom colors, extending themes, and configuring plugins. However, in version 4, Tailwind introduced CSS-based configurations, which means you no longer need a Tailwind config file for most use cases. This is a fantastic improvement because it simplifies the setup and makes it easier to work directly with CSS. If you're curious about how CSS-based configurations work, make sure to check out our previous video where we dive deep into all the exciting new features of version 4, including this one. Now, here is the catch. Since the Tailwind config file is no longer generated by default, the Tailwind CSS IntelliSense extension doesn't work out of the box. Why? Because this extension relies on the presence of the configuration file to provide its intelligent features. Without the config file, IntelliSense won't recognize the utility classes, leaving you without its amazing functionality. While, in my opinion, this will likely be addressed in the near future, Tailwind CSS version 4 has only just been released, and the tools and ecosystem around it are still catching up. But for now, if you want to use the Tailwind CSS IntelliSense extension, you will need to manually create a Tailwind config.js file, even if it's completely empty. Now let's test if the extension is working. I'm going to start typing, let's say text red in the class attribute, and you will notice that IntelliSense kicks in, suggesting all the available shades of red. This is the extension in action. It provides you with a list of all possible classes, making it easier to explore Tailwind's utilities without needing to constantly refer to the documentation. Now that we've explored the different installation methods for Tailwind CSS version 4, let's move on to the final part of this video, upgrading a project from Tailwind CSS version 3 to version 4. For this demonstration, I've set up a simple website header that uses Tailwind CSS version 3, and we will go through the entire process of upgrading it to the latest version step by step. Let's first confirm that this project is indeed running Tailwind CSS version 3. If we open the Tailwind config file, you will see it's present in the project directory, which is typically for Tailwind CSS version 3. Next, let's take a look at the package.json file. Here you can see that the Tailwind CSS version is set to 3, which verifies that we are using the older version. Now, if we open the index.css file, we will find the traditional Tailwind directives for importing base styles, components, and utilities. This setup confirms that we are working with Tailwind CSS version 3. The project is already up and running in the browser, and as you can see, everything is working perfectly fine. Now it's time to upgrade this project to Tailwind CSS version 4. First, let's stop the terminal by pressing Ctrl+C. So Tailwind CSS version 4 requires Node.js version 20 or higher. To ensure we meet this requirement, let's run the following command in the terminal. We need node-v. This command outputs the version of Node.js installed on your machine. As you can see, we are using Node.js version 20, which means we're good to go. If your version is lower, you'll need to update Node.js before proceeding. Now, to upgrade our project, we will run the official Tailwind CSS upgrade command, which is npx at Tailwind CSS /upgrade at next. This command does all the heavy lifting for us. It automatically updates the Tailwind CSS version in our project, modifies configuration files as needed, and adjusts project settings to align with Tailwind CSS version 4. As the command runs, you will see a series of messages in the terminal indicating that the upgrade process is in progress. Once it's complete, let's take a look at the changes it made. The first noticeable change is that the Tailwind config file has been removed from the project. Why? Because Tailwind CSS version 4 has introduced CSS-based configurations, eliminating the need for a separate configuration file in many cases. Next, if we open the package.json file, you will see that the Tailwind CSS version has been updated to 4, confirming that our project is now using the latest version. If we check the index.css file, the older Tailwind directives, base, components, and utilities, are gone, and instead we now have a single line. This new directive imports all the necessary styles directly, streamlining the process and reducing boilerplate code. Now let's start the development server again to ensure everything is working as expected. In the terminal, run npm run dev. If we check the browser, you will see that the project works perfectly with Tailwind CSS version 4 as well. Alright, that wraps up our deep dive into Tailwind CSS v4 installations and upgrading. In this video we explored the different installation and setup methods and upgraded a project from version 3 to version 4. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss any of our future tutorials. We'd also love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What's your favorite feature in Tailwind version 4? Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.